Oh, nice one. How are you, Carol? You're right? Can you hear me?
I'm good. Yep, I can hear you.
Perfect. This time is a good one. I'm recording it. Everything all right. So, Carol,
Okay.
welcome to Thelma's podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. And how are you? I know that we have an 8 hour time difference,
Yes,
and
I'm all
you're
right.
thousands of miles away.
Yes, I am. Honestly, the funny thing is, Canada and America was places I considered to go instead of coming to Britain. Somehow, despite the rubbish weather, here I am 22 years later. So I'm going to ask you briefly. So I know we've done this before, but is it good because now I've got the question, everything in my head. But if you can tell us about Amanda's upbringing. So when she was younger, how was she like as a little girl, Amanda?
I think when Amanda was younger, she was just an inquisitive, curious child. She liked to do things differently, I guess. She had a strong mind ever since she was little. For example, when she found out that there were cookies in the world, she loved cookies, eating cookies, right? So we would have to sort of hide them in high places. And one morning when I got up, um, I had gone into the kitchen and I saw cookie crumbs in the cookie bag, but I had put them in the high shelf above the stove, right? And she had managed to figure out, and she was only like two and a half. She figured out how to drag the kitchen chair to the counter and then climb up and then find the cookies. And so I knew at that point that it was going to be um, a struggle to keep things away from her because when she had something in her mind that she wanted, she would um, find ways to solve the problem and get what she wanted. So, and of course that flowed into her um, preteen and teenage life too. Um, she was a willful, stubborn child sometimes, but I had always thought that with that with that spirit in her, she could be and do whatever she wanted to do just because she was so she persevered at what she wanted.
Okay. And how was a school life like? Once you started school, how was it like for her?
School was a struggle when she was little, and in kindergarten and grade one, she had difficulties remembering the alphabet and the sounds they made. So subsequently, her reading was behind, and we couldn't figure out why because she was so verbal. And so decided to get an assessment, an educational assessment on her, and we found out she had a learning disability. So um, this was in the area of language processing. So whatever, if people spoke too fast, it would be difficult for her to understand. Her short-term memory was weak, so of course she couldn't process things and keep them in her mind, like math facts and reading words. So she struggled through school, and she needed assistance in her schooling. And she felt, well, what kid doesn't, right? She felt horrible about that because she wasn't learning like all the other kids, and she had to get pulled out for extra help. But we found that early, but it was still really hard for her to comprehend all that. And plus, um, in Canada or in BC, kids can start school of September of that year, and they can be 4 years old as long as they turn 5 by December 31st. And she had a no, late November birthday, so she would have started school when she was 4. So I decided as an educator that it would be best that she spend an extra year at home, at preschool, just with smaller groups. So she was a year older than her peers, that didn't really show up in school, but it showed up outside of school in extracurricular activities like sports, because she was playing with older kids, only a year older, right? But she was in school with younger kids and she saw her older peers in different classes. So that too became a question she asked when she figured all that stuff out.
Hmm. So, the one thing I remember reading about Amanda, she used to love performing, singing. So, when did that come about? How old was she when she started to develop a love for performing and for singing?
Well, I think when you look at the visual and performing arts, singing, dancing, sports, and um, even art, the art came out at an early age because in the preschool years, it's a lot of hands-on creating and making things, and she just had a way to. She knew how to put her colors together and her pictures together, and then she was always singing to songs um, on her. We had little tape recorders and things like that when she was really young. And then when she was 7 and 8 and she figured out how to use like a camcorder to film herself, she would film herself singing odd songs. And then it progressed as she got older. So she always had that passion for singing and creating art. And we had her in choirs, and she didn't do that well in playing the piano, but um, she was definitely right brained and on the artistic side.